We are drifting back, way back, to a world of silk, poetry, and profound, almost sleepy elegance. We're setting our course for the Heian period of Japan, around the year 1000 AD. Imagine a world lit by oil lamps, where beauty was a duty and communication was an art form conducted through layers of fabric and handwritten, notes tied to flowering branches. It's a world of immense, quiet luxury, but also one of incredible restriction, especially if you were a woman of the court. You probably wouldn't survive a week here without accidentally offending someone with the wrong color combination on your sleeve. But here, in our cozy space, you're perfectly safe and exquisitely relaxed. So, before your eyelids get too heavy, if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, tap that like button and subscribe to keep our sleepy adventures coming. After all, nobody wants to miss out on history, right? I'd love to see where you're drifting off from tonight, so feel free to leave a comment with your city and the local time. It's always comforting to know our little club of nappy friends spans the quiet corners of the globe. So dim your lights, tune into the soft, comforting fan hum, and ease gently into tonight's journey, because you're now officially in Nappy community. You're not just listening, you're an essential part of our Nappy family, where every night is soothing, special, and yours. You're safe, valued, and always welcome. You awaken not to light, but to sound. The world for you, Lady Akiko, is a place of muffled orchestration. The first clue that morning has arrived is the distant, rhythmic sweeping in the outer courtyards. It's a gentle, percussive shisha of a straw broom against stone, a sound so familiar it has become part of your sleep itself. Your chamber is a space of deep, comforting shadow. The heavy wooden shutters, or shitomi, are still closed, blocking out whatever watery, pre-dawn light might be trying to seep into the capital city of Heian-kyō. You lie still on your sleeping pallet, a stack of soft tatami mats, covered by layers of silken robes that serve as blankets. The air is cool and carries the faintest scent of the plum blossoms from the small, meticulously curated garden just beyond your veranda, a garden you rarely see directly. A soft, almost imperceptible rustle of silk alerts you to the presence of your attendant, Kinu. You hear the whisper of her knees sliding across the polished wooden floor. She doesn't speak. She wouldn't dare disturb the morning's quiet so abruptly. Instead, she moves to the edge of your private space, which is cordoned off from the rest of the room by a kichu, a portable screen of state. It's a beautiful object, a frame of lacquered wood with drapes of raw silk hanging from its crossbar, painted with a delicate scene of autumn grasses. It is your shield, your boundary, your entire world. You are a noblewoman of the Fujiwara clan, and your life is lived behind screens. It is a fact as solid and unchangeable as the placement of the stars. You hear the gentle thud of a porcelain basin being placed on the floor, followed by the soft splash of water. It's time for your morning ablutions. You sit up, your long, unbound hair, your greatest pride, a floor-length cascade of black silk pooling around you. Kinu slides the kichu aside, just enough to enter your immediate space. She kneels and offers you a cup of warm water to rinse your mouth. Then comes the part of the routine that might seem peculiar to an outsider, but to you is the very definition of refinement and beauty. She presents a small lacquered box containing a thick, dark liquid. This is the ohaguro, the tooth blackener. Using a feather brush, you carefully apply the mixture to your teeth. The practice, historians will later debate, was possibly for dental preservation, but for you, it is purely aesthetic. White teeth are seen as unpleasantly stark, almost bestial. A beautiful woman's smile reveals a row of gleaming black lacquer. It signifies your maturity and your status dot. As you perform this quiet ritual, you contemplate your world. This life of seclusion, is it a gilded cage? Or is it a protected garden, where a very specific, very delicate kind of culture can bloom? Future scholars will argue about this, some seeing you as a prisoner of a patriarchal system, others pointing out that this very seclusion fostered one of the most brilliant literary eras in history, an era dominated by the writings of women just like you. For you, it is simply life. You have never known anything else. The thought of walking freely in the street, your face exposed to the sun and the gaze of commoners, is not a dream of freedom, but a nightmare of vulgarity. Your world is small, yes, but it is deep. It is a world of nuance, where the slightest change in the scent of blended incense can convey a complex emotion, and the color of a robe can signal a poetic illusion that only the most refined of your peers would understand. Kinu helps you with the first layer of your clothing, a simple white silk underrobe or kasode. This is just the beginning of a long and intricate process. You hear more attendants arriving, their soft footsteps and whispered conversations a sign that the main event of the morning is about to begin. They carry armfuls of silk, a rainbow, of colors so vibrant they seem to glow even in the dim light filtering through the paper of the shiji screens. The dressing is a ceremony in itself, a slow, methodical layering that will define your day, your mood, and your very identity. You feel a faint sense of anticipation. Today you have decided on a color combination that reflects a verse from a poem you read last night, a subtle message for anyone astute enough to notice. You are a canvas, and soon you will be a masterpiece of layered silk, a living, breathing poem, ready to face your day from behind your ever-present, ever-protective screens. Your real life is not one of action, but of perception and expression. A constant, quiet broadcast of your inner world through the most beautiful materials you can imagine. The air in your chamber shifts. The quiet reverence of waking gives way to a focused, almost sacred industry. Your two attendants, Kinu and the younger Tama, move with a silent understanding, their hands practiced and sure. The dressing begins. This is not the simple act of putting on clothes. It is an act of construction. You are the foundation, and they are the architects of your daily presentation. The garment they are about to build around you is the famous Hito, the 12-layer robe, though you know the name is more poetic than literal. Sometimes it might be 10 layers. Other times, for the highest of ceremonies, it could swell to 20. Today, it will be a carefully chosen 10. A weight you are accustomed to dot first come the nagabakama, the long, pleated trousers of a stiff, brilliant red silk. They are deliberately oversized, designed to trail behind you as you move, pulling around your feet when you are seated. They are the first anchor, securing you to your highborn status. You step into them, and Kinu ties them snugly at your waist. Already, your freedom of movement is curtailed. You must learn to walk by gliding, kicking the fabric forward with each step in a practiced, fluid motion. Next is the Hito, a simple, unlined robe, today in a shade of pale green, like the first shoots of spring bamboo. It is light, almost weightless, a deceptive prelude to what is to come God, then the real artistry begins. Kinu and Tama bring forth these Setsu Junu, the 5 layers of lined robes that form the heart of the color display. This is where your poetic sensibilities are laid bare for all to see. The Heian court is a world of fierce, unspoken competition, and the choice of colors is a primary battlefield. A clumsy combination is a social death. A masterful one earns whispered admiration. You have chosen a theme known as plum blossoms in the snow. The innermost robe of the 5 is a deep, vibrant crimson, like the flower itself. The next is a hun, soft pink, then a lighter pink, then a robe of pure, stark white, and finally, another layer of white on top. When layered, the edges at your collar, and most importantly, at the openings of your wide sleeves, create a perfect, subtle gradient. From red to white, It evokes the image of a hardy plum blossom pushing its way through a late winter snow. It is a statement of resilience and delicate beauty, a poem written in silk. One by one, they place the robes upon you. Each one is heavier than the last. You hold your arms out stiffly as they work. The weight begins to settle on your shoulders, a familiar grounding pressure. You feel your posture straightening, your spine aligning to support the load. This is the part that outsiders could never understand. They see the restriction, the sheer impracticality of wearing what amounts to a small mountain of fabric. Historians of the distant future will debate whether this was a tool of oppression or a form of expressive art. For you, it is both, and neither. It is simply the way you inhabit your body. The weight forces you into a state of grace. Every movement must be deliberate, slow, and elegant. Fidgeting is an impossibility. Haste is unthinkable. A wry thought crosses your mind. If the palace ever caught fire, your survival strategy would be to sit gracefully and compose a final poem on the transient nature of things. Running is simply not in the sartorial vocabulary. After the 5 layers of the Itsutsu-junu, they add the Ujijinu, a robe of stiff, beaten silk in a deep scarlet that adds structure and a crisp rustle to the ensemble. Then comes the Uwagi, the outermost robe. It is shorter than the others to allow the sleeve colors to show, and it is the most richly decorated. Today's is a pale celadon green brocade, woven with a pattern of golden butterflies. Each garment has its own sound. The collective rustle as you move. The connoisseur is a sound men of the court find deeply alluring, a whisper of hidden luxury. Your sleeve becomes a curious multi-purpose tool. You might discreetly tuck a small scented cloth into one of its folds, or as you do now, a tiny piece of folded paper upon which you've been practicing a line of poetry. It's your secret pocket in a world without them. Finally, the 2 outermost pieces are added. The karajinu, a short, ornate jacket that falls only to your waist, adding another layer of formal structure. And the mo, a long painted train of gossamer thin white silk, which is tied at your back and trails far behind you. It is decorated with a hand-painted scene of cranes wading in a marsh, a symbol of longevity and good fortune. Now the construction is complete. You are fully dressed. The total weight is close to 20 kilograms, a heavy but familiar embrace. Your attendants help you to your seat, a raised tatami platform covered with a plush cushion. You arrange yourself, your layers of silk cascading around you in a perfect, calculated circle of color. Your hands, pale and delicate, rest on your lap. Your head, heavy with its floor-length hair, is held high. You are no longer just Akiko. You are a living work of art, a symbol of the Fujiwara clan's power and taste. Your day can now truly begin, not with action, but with being. You sit, perfectly still, a 12-layered rainbow of identity, waiting for the world to come to you. Now you sit, a perfect, still portrait in layered silk. But inside this serene exterior, your mind is anything but still. It is turning, examining, and constructing. The Heian court runs on an engine of unspoken rules and subtle gestures, and its primary fuel is poetry. Direct conversation with a man who is not your father or brother is unthinkable. A breach of etiquette so severe would cause a scandal. So you communicate through the delicate, intricate vessel of the waka. A poem is not just a poem. It is a probe, a flirtation, a test of intelligence, a declaration of feeling, and a political chess move all at once. It's essentially the most elegant, high-stakes text message ever conceived, and you are about to craft your reply. Yesterday evening, a messenger arrived bearing a poem from a young nobleman, Lord Minamoto. You have never met him. You have never seen his face, and he has never seen yours. In the courtly world, this is perfectly normal. A man might catch a fleeting glimpse of a woman's sleeve, peeking from beneath the blind of her ox-drawn carriage, or hear a rumor of her skill in music, and that is enough to begin a correspondence. Lord Minamoto is a promising figure, known for his skill with the bow, and more importantly, his graceful calligraphy. His poem, written on a handsome piece of dark blue paper, was attached to a branch of willow. It spoke of the morning dew on the leaves, comparing its fleeting beauty to a certain lady's reputation, which he had only heard of from afar. It was a standard, if elegantly executed, opening move in the great game of courtship. Now, etiquette demands a response. To ignore it would be a pointed insult. To respond too eagerly would be unrefined. You must walk a fine line, crafting a reply that is modest yet clever, appreciative yet reserved. This is your art, while men might distinguish themselves on the battlefield or in political council. Your battlefield is a 7-inch square of fine paper, and your weapon is a brush tipped with ink. You close your eyes for a moment, ignoring the weight of the silk on your shoulders, and let the words of his poem drift through your mind. The dew on the willow. A classic metaphor. He is testing your literary knowledge. You signal to Kinu, who understands immediately. She brings your writing box, a masterpiece of black lacquer inlaid with mother of pearl. She sets it before you, along with a small stone bowl. You take the ink stick, a solid block of hardened soot and pine resin, and Kinu adds a few drops of clear water to your inkstone. You begin to grind the ink, a slow, circular motion. The friction releases a faint, earthy scent that you find deeply calming. This is part of the process, a meditative moment to gather your thoughts. Scholars in the future will debate endlessly whether these poetic exchanges were expressions of genuine emotion or merely sophisticated social performances. As you watch the ink pool in the stone, you think it's a question without an answer. Can you truly know someone you've never seen? Perhaps not, but you can know their mind, their taste, their soul, through the choices they make with a brush. You find yourself more intrigued by the confident, swift-stroke Lord Minamoto used for the character for wind than by his family's considerable political influence. It's a strange basis for a potential relationship, but in your world, it is the only one that matters. Finally, you have it. The perfect response. You will gently turn his metaphor back on him. You select a piece of paper, a thin, almost translucent sheet of washi in a pale, blushing pink, subtly perfumed by being stored with your personal blend of incense. You dip your brush, the fine tip of weasel hair absorbing the dark ink. Then, with a practiced, fluid hand, you paint the characters onto the page. Your poem follows the strict 5-7-5-7-7 syllable structure of the waka. If you speak of dew, so quick to fade from the leaf, how can you know it? My reputation may be only a trick of the light. It is polite, a little playful, and carries a hint of melancholy questioning. It acknowledges his compliment while suggesting that reputations, like dew, are ephemeral and perhaps illusory. It shows you are not so easily won over by simple flattery. It says your move, my lord. The quality of the calligraphy is just as important as the words. You ensure each stroke is balanced, each character a small work of art in itself. Satisfied, you lay the brush down. The poem cannot be sent alone, of course. The presentation is half the message. Kinu, you say, your voice soft. Find me a branch from the early blooming cherry tree, one with a perfect half-open bud. Kinu bows and disappears into the garden. She soon returns with an exquisite branch, its delicate pink bud promising future beauty. You carefully fold your poem into a neat, narrow strip and tie it to the branch with a ribbon of pale purple silk. The final creation is a symphony of subtle signals, the poem's words, the elegant calligraphy, the scented pink paper, the promising. Cherry Bud. It's a package of pure Heian aesthetics. A young page from your household is summoned. He kneels, and you pass the branch to Kinu, who in turn gives it to him with quiet instructions. From behind your bamboo cedar blinds, you watch the boy's small figure hurry across the courtyard and out of the gate. You have just sent a small piece of your soul out into the capital, tied to a twig. Now, all you can do is wait and wonder what kind of soul will be sent back in return. The afternoon deepens. The sounds from the courtyard have softened to a sleepy hum, and a bar of dusty gold light has found a crack in the wooden shutters, painting a worn stripe across the tatami mat just beyond your silkscreen. The waiting has begun. The messenger carrying your poem to Lord Minamoto will not return for some hours, perhaps not even until tomorrow morning. The game of poetry has its own unhurried rhythm. An immediate reply would seem unthoughtful. And so you are, left in this quiet, suspended moment, adrift in your sea of silk. Your mind, restless and sharp, needs an anchor. You decide, as you often do, to commune with the masters. You ask Kinu to bring you the Komachi collection, your personal, hand-copied anthology of the poems of Ono no Komake. She returns with a slender scroll, its roller made of sandalwood, and its tie a simple faded crimson cord. This object is one of your treasures. Komachi lived more than a century ago, yet her voice remains the most powerful, the most vibrant, and the most dangerous in the entire canon of Japanese poetry. She is a ghostly muse to all women who pick up a brush. Unrolling the scroll feels like an act of summoning. The paper is soft with age, the ink still dark and resonant. Her words are not just words. They are echoes of a life lived with a passion that feels almost shocking to your more codified, restrained sensibilities. Komachi was a legend. She was one of the Rakusen, the 6 poetry immortals, the only woman granted that title in her time. But her fame went far beyond her technical skill. She was, by all accounts, a woman of such devastating beauty that her very name, Komachi, became a synonym for a female paragon. She was the it girl of the 9th century, a figure so iconic that her identity was a blend of historical woman and pure myth. As you read her poems, you try to find the real person behind the formidable legend. Her voice is so different from the courtly ideal. It is raw, intimate, and steeped in a profound sadness about the fleeting nature of life and love. You pause. At one of her most famous waka, Yutatain enai koishiki hito maichi yori yum chomano watanomi samtekiru. Since the time I dreamt of the one I long for, while I was dozing, the thing they call a dream has become my sole reliance. Sentiment strikes you with its stark honesty. She is not hiding behind clever metaphors about dew or cherry blossoms. She is speaking plainly of longing, of finding more reality in her dreams of a lover than in her waking life. You feel a flush of recognition. Is this not the very heart of your own existence? Living for the idea of a person, for a correspondence, for a feeling nurtured in the quiet of your own screened-off quarters? You admire her boldness, the sheer force of her emotion, but you also understand the whispers that still cling to her name, like frost. A woman who felt so deeply, who wrote so openly of her desires, must have been dangerous, and the legends certainly paint her that way. You turn the scroll to the section that includes the famous story of Fukakusa no Shisho, a captain who fell madly in love with her. You've read it a dozen times. Komachi, the story goes, promised she would be his if he would visit her residence for 100 consecutive nights to prove his devotion. For 99 nights, the captain came, marking each visit on the shaft of his carriage. He came through autumn gales and winter snows. But on the 100th, the final night, he succumbed to the exposure and his own exhaustion and died. It's a chilling tale, one that cemented her reputation as a heartless femme fatale. But as you sit there, surrounded by the symbols of your own confinement, you wonder. Scholars now, and scholars 1,000 years from now, will debate the truth of this story. Was Komachi truly so cruel? Or was this a myth created to punish a woman who was too brilliant, too beautiful, too unwilling to play by the rules? A woman whose poetry held more power than most men's swords? The idea of a man showing up for 100 nights just to prove a point seems excessive. A theatrical gesture of the kind men favor. Perhaps the story's not about her cruelty at all, but about the foolish, obsessive nature of a love that is more about possession than true understanding. You see her not as a villain, but as a woman setting an impossible standard because, perhaps, she wished to be left alone, to be free in the only way she could be, by being unattainable. Reading her work feels like looking at a distorted reflection. She is the woman you could be if you were bolder, or perhaps more reckless. Her passion is a flame. Your own cultivated sensibility is a carefully arranged, cool moonbeam. And yet, you are both women of the Heian court, your lives dictated by the same rules of seclusion, your hearts filled with the same universal longings. The scroll lies open in your lap, the ink of her soul speaking to yours across the silent. Decades. She is not just a historical figure to be studied. She is a presence in the room, a ghostly reminder that behind the silk screens and the poetic games, a woman's heart is a deep and complex world of its own. You roll the scroll closed, the scent of old paper and sandalwood filling the air. Your mind is no longer just waiting for Lord Minamoto's reply. It is now tangled in the much larger, more haunting questions left behind by the ghost of Ono no Komachi. The ghost of Ono no Komachi now lingers in your chamber, a palpable presence stirred up from the aged paper of her scroll. Her boldness both inspires and unnerves you. To better understand her, to truly feel the shape of her soul, you decide, not just to read, but to transcribe. The act of copying a master's work is a form of deep listening, a way to trace the very pathways of their genius with your own hand. You bid Kinu to bring you a fresh practice scroll and to prepare the inkstone. Once more, the familiar calming ritual of grinding the ink settles your mind, creating a pocket of stillness in the long, quiet afternoon. You unroll the Komachi scroll again, this time not to read, but to study. Your eyes fall upon what is perhaps her most famous, most devastatingly beautiful poem. It is a work so iconic that it has come to define her entire legacy, a perfect 5-line encapsulation of Heian melancholy. You carefully study the characters on your master copy, then dip your brush and begin to form them on your own scroll. Each stroke is a breath. Hana no iro wa, the color of the flowers. The opening is simple, a universal observation. Everyone in the court understands the symbolism of the flower, most often the cherry blossom. It is the emblem of beauty, but also of a beauty that is heartbreakingly brief. Utsurinakari na has faded, alas. The second line delivers the inevitable. Turn, the beauty is gone. The verb tense she uses implies it has happened while the speaker was distracted, a process that was both gradual and suddenly, shockingly complete. You paint the character for fade, feeling the gentle sorrow in its strokes. It is Zura, an eye, meaninglessly, in vain. This is the line that holds the knife. This is the heart of the regret. The fading happened in vain. It was for nothing. As you copy this phrase, you ponder the whispers you have heard about Komachi's life, the legends of her many lovers. The court, then as now, was a hotbed of rumor. Whispers in the corridors travel faster and with more embellishments than in imperial procession. They said she was pursued by the great Bishop Henju, by the handsome and tragic Ariwara no Narihira, another of the 6 poetry immortals. The thought of a poetic duel between Komachi and Narahira is enough to make you pause. What must that have been like? A battle of wits and hearts waged by the two greatest talents of their generation. But if her life was so full of these grand passions and admirers, why this profound sense of waste? Why it Azura and I? Perhaps the affairs themselves were the meaningless thing. An endless series of poetic exchanges, of clandestine glances through carriage blinds, of scented fans and notes tied to branches. Perhaps it was a game that, in the end, felt hollow. You look at your own poem, sent only this morning to Lord Minamoto, and a faint chill runs through you. You are playing the same game, following the same rules. You wonder if this is the inevitable. Destination. You continue to the final two lines, where her genius for wordplay shines brightest. Wagami yone furu. While my body passed through the world, Nagami sashi ma nai. While I was lost in long rains, melancholy thought. Here lies the masterstroke. The word Nagami means long rains, a dreary season-long affair. But it is also a homophone for Nagami, to gaze, or to be lost in contemplation. She watched her beauty fade while lost in thought, just as the spring rains cause the cherry blossoms to fall. It is a perfect, seamless fusion of natural image and internal emotion. You marvel at the cleverness, the sheer elegance of the pun. It is the kind of poetic achievement that separates the merely skilled from the immortal dot as you complete the final character. You sit back, the weight of your 12-layered costume suddenly feeling heavier. The poem is no longer just words on a page. It is a confession. It speaks of a life of perceived glamour and romance that, from the inside, felt empty and unfulfilled. The faded colors of the flowers are her own faded youth and beauty, and she grieves their loss not because they are gone, but because she feels they were spent on nothing of substance. Here you are, a century later, a young woman at the beginning of her life in court, copying a poem about a woman lamenting the end of hers. A wry thought enters your mind. You are spending your afternoon idly contemplating a poem about the vanity of idle contemplation. The irony is as perfectly layered as the silk on your shoulders. You look from the transcribed poem to your own pale hands, the brush still resting between your fingers. The legends of Komachi's lovers are just that, legends. Romantic stories, spun to add even more mystique to her name. The truth, you suspect, is far sadder. It's the truth written right here, in her own hand, a feeling of profound loneliness, of being a spectator to your own life, of watching the most vibrant colors fade away while lost in a long, quiet rain of thought. The melancholy of Komachi's poem about the faded flower clings to you, a fine, invisible dust. It begs the question that hangs at the end of every great story. What happened after? If her brilliant life at court was something she looked back on with such regret, where did she go? The unsettling answer is that nobody truly knows. The historical record of Ono no Komachi, after her time in the capital, is a perfect blank. It is a silence so profound that it invited an entire industry of legend to fill the void. And the story that took root is one that is whispered as a cautionary tale among the ladies of your circle. It is a story you find both fascinating and deeply repellent. You imagine the older, more cynical ladies in waiting telling it to the younger ones on a rainy night. They would describe Komachi's twilight years not as a gentle fading, but as a catastrophic collapse. In this legend, the most beautiful woman in Japan becomes a wretched, homeless crone. You picture their morbidly descriptive words. They would speak of her back, once straight and proud, now bent into a question mark. Her famous floor-length black hair, now a shocking white tangle, matted and thin. Her skin, once compared to the finest silk, now a roadmap of wrinkles and liver spots. In this story, she wanders the countryside in rags, begging for a bowl of rice, her identity completely erased by time and poverty. The most famous version of this tale, which has even been made into a no play called Sotoba Komakai, places her in a moment of final, defiant brilliance. In the play, the aged Komachi, weary and destitute, sits to rest on a sotoba, a sacred wooden stupa marking a grave. This is an act of sacrilege. Two monks from a nearby monastery see her and come too, chastise this ragged old woman for her impiety. But instead of a witless beggar, they find a theological grandmaster. The crone who is Komachi engages them in a dazzling debate on Buddhist philosophy, quoting obscure sutras and turning their own logic against them with a mind as sharp as it ever was. The monks are left stunned, realizing they are in the presence of a formidable, if fallen, spirit. This story is often presented as a lesson in karma. Her destitution is seen as divine punishment for her youthful hubris, for the hearts she supposedly broke, like that of the tragic Captain Fukakusa, who died on the 99th night. The moral whispered among the court ladies is clear. Don't be too proud, too clever, or too beautiful, or this will be your fate. It is, you think, a remarkably convenient fable, particularly for a society dominated by men who might have felt unnerved by a woman of her intellect and power. It's far more comforting for them to imagine a brilliant woman ending up miserable than to picture her retiring gracefully with her wits and a comfortable pension from a patron dot. The very idea makes you shudder with a kind of loyal indignation. The woman whose voice you have come to know through her poetry, a voice so alive with passion, intelligence, and a fierce, sorrowful honesty, could not simply have dissolved into such a cliché of misery. The historians and scholars of yore, time already debate this. They question whether this story is history or merely a grim Buddhist parable about the sin of vanity, with Komachi's famous name attached to give it more impact. Some even connect the legend to the morbid artistic tradition of Kosuzu, the 9 stages of a decaying corpse, where a beautiful woman's body is depicted in graphic stages of decomposition to teach monks about impermanence. The thought that Komachi's legacy was co-opted for such a grim purpose feels like a profound injustice. You reject the legend. In the quiet theater of your mind, you decide to write a different ending for her. You close your eyes and picture it. You see Komachi, recognizing the hollowness of courtly life, making a choice. She doesn't fall from grace. She steps away from it. You imagine her leaving the capital, not in rags, but in a simple but elegant carriage, heading for a small temple her family endowed in the mountains near Jimi Dot. In your version, she does not become a crone. She ages. Her hair turns a beautiful, dignified silver. The lines on her face speak not of misery, but of a life fully lived and contemplated. She spends her days in quiet meditation, in tending a small garden, and in teaching a few chosen local girls the art of calligraphy. And she still writes poetry. But now, her poems are not for suitors or for public competition. They are for herself. She writes about the sound of the evening bell echoing through the valley, the scent of pine in the rain, the way the moonlight looks on the frost of a winter branch. Her passion has not been extinguished. It has been transformed from a blazing fire into a steady, warm hearth. In your story, her mind, the one that dazzled monks in the legend, finds peace, not ruin. She finds fulfillment not in the adoration of men, but in the quiet, steady rhythm of the world, far from the echoes of meaningless praise. This is the Ono no Komachi you choose to believe in, not a cautionary tale, but a story of quiet, ultimate triumph. Just as the weight of your thoughts on Komachi's fate begins to feel as heavy as the silk on your shoulders, a familiar stir in the outer rooms announces an arrival. It is the page boy, returned at last. He carries a single magnificent branch from a cherry tree in full, glorious bloom. Tied to it with a dark blue ribbon is a reply, written on thick cream-colored paper. It is from Lord Minamoto. A quiet excitement, as soft and subtle as the rustle of Kinu's sleeve, flutters within. You. His poem is a masterful response, appreciating the wit of your own and gently suggesting that even a trick of the light is worth admiring if it is beautiful. But the real message is in the branch itself. It is an invitation, not to meet, of course, such a thing would be scandalously flawed, but to share an experience. He invites you to gaze upon the beauty of the cherry blossoms, knowing that he, from his own residence across the city, will be doing the same. This prompts an immediate, gentle flurry of activity in your household. A formal blossom viewing must be arranged. The southern shutters of the main hall, which look out onto the grandest of your family's gardens, are unlatched and removed, opening the entire room to the air and the light. You and the other ladies of the household proceed there. You do not, of course, step out into the garden itself. You remain on the polished veranda, a respectable distance from the raw nature of the outdoors. Your portable silk screens are arranged artfully, allowing you to see out while preventing any unseemly direct exposure. You are at once a participant and a spectator, the ideal position for a Heian noblewoman. And the sight before you is breathtaking. The massive cherry tree, the heart of the garden, is a billowing cloud of white and pale pink. It seems to vibrate with life against the deep green of the mossy ground and the dark, glossy leaves of the surrounding camellias. A gentle breeze, carrying the clean, sweet scent of the blossoms, sends periodic flurries of petals drifting down like warm snow. They blanket the ornamental rocks and dust the surface of the carp pond, creating a living, changing painting. Atmosphere among the ladies is not one of loud celebration. It is one of deep, shared appreciation. An older aunt might be softly strumming a koto, its plaintive notes seeming to capture the mood perfectly. Another lady is already grinding ink, her mind no doubt already forming a waka in response to the scene. As you sit there, gazing at the impossible beauty of the tree, a profound and uniquely Japanese feeling settles over you. It is mano no aware. There is no simple translation for this concept. It is not just sadness. It is the pathos of things, a gentle, bittersweet awareness of the transient nature of life. It is the deep, stirring feeling you get when you are confronted with a beauty so intense that it is inseparable from the knowledge of its own passing. This is why the cherry blossom, the sakura, is the ultimate symbol of your culture. It is not beautiful despite its brief life of a week or two. It is beautiful because of it. The intensity of its bloom is made all the more precious by the certainty that it will soon be gone. To look at a pretty tree, for you, is never just to look at a pretty tree. It's a full-blown philosophical and emotional experience, one that practically demands a moment of deep, soul-stirring contemplation about the nature of the universe. It is, in its own way, beautifully exhausting. You watch a single, perfect petal detach from its branch. It spirals in the air, catching the light, before landing softly in a cup of sweet rice wine sitting on a lacquer tray nearby. For a moment, you are struck by the pathos of its tiny, elegant journey from the sky to the cup. Then, a more practical thought intrudes. You wonder if the wine is still proper to drink. But you push the thought away and return to the feeling. This is the soul of Heian aesthetics. It is the same feeling you found in Kamakasi's poem of the faded flower. Here it is, playing out in real time. The tree is at its absolute peak, a riot of life and color, but in its perfection lies the promise of its imminent end. In a week, this branch will be bare. This understanding doesn't fill you with a morbid despair. Instead, it imbues the moment with an incredible poignancy. It makes everything sharper, more precious. You think of the new poem from Lord Minamoto, of this delicate, budding correspondence. This feeling of gentle anticipation, this too is like the blossoms. It is beautiful and perfect right now, in this moment. It may blossom into something more, or it may fade and scatter on the wind. The uncertainty is part of its beauty. To experience Mano no aware is to accept this truth about everything love, beauty, youth, life itself. As dusk begins to settle, painting the white blossoms in shades of lavender and gray, you are filled not with sadness, but with a deep, quiet, and strangely comforting sense of clarity. Beauty is precious not because it lasts, but because it doesn't. The last echoes of the blossom viewing have faded with the daylight. The paper screens are drawn, the lamps are lit, and the chamber is once again your self-contained world of warm shadows. The day's events, the anticipation, the exchange of poems, the profound shared experience of the blossoms have left a fine silt of emotion in your mind. To settle it, to find your center again, you turn not to passive rest, but to an active meditation. You turn to Shado, the way of the brush. It is an art form you have practiced since you could first hold a toy. For in Heian Japan, one's handwriting is not merely a tool for communication. It is a mirror of the soul. A clumsy hand suggests a clumsy mind. A graceful, confident stroke reveals a spirit to match. Kinyu helps you prepare the 4 treasures of the study, laying them out on a low, lacquered table. First is the Suzuri, the inkstone. It is a cool, dark slate, worn smooth by 3 generations of women in your family, its surface holding the ghosts of countless poems and letters. Next is the Sumi, the inkstick, a dense block of hardened pine, soot and fragrant oils. As you take it and begin to grind it with a few drops of water in the well of the inkstone, a familiar, calming scent, earthy and slightly sweet, rises to fill the air. It is the smell of focus. Then there is the paper, the washi, a sheet of pristine white with a subtle, fibrous texture lying in wait. It is a silent participant, ready to accept whatever you give it, but it is unforgiving. A single mark, once made, is permanent. Finally, you select your brush, the food. Not the fine, delicate one you used for the poem, but a slightly larger one, with bristles of goat hair, capable of holding more ink and producing a bolder, more expressive line. Tonight, you will not write a poem. You will focus on a single character, a single concept that has been echoing in your mind since you watched the blossoms fall. You will practice the kanji for emptiness or sky. Pronounced ka, it is a character heavy with Buddhist meaning, a concept that speaks of a void that is not nothingness, but is in fact the source of all potential. You sit straight, your spine aligned, the heavy silk of your robes settled around you. You take a few long, slow breaths, clearing your mind. You try to release the lingering questions about Lord Minamoto, the ghost of Kamaki, the memory of the falling petals. The goal is to let the mind become as empty as the character you wish to write. It's a bit like trying to smooth a pond with your hands. The more you try, the more ripples you make. But you breathe and you settle, holding. The brush perfectly vertical, your grip firm but not tense. You lift it, heavy with dark ink. The movement must come from your arm and shoulder, not your fingers. For a moment, you hover over the page. This pause is everything. Then, in a series of swift, unbroken movements, you bring the brush down. A bold diagonal stroke, gets smaller. One beside it, then the strong horizontal line of the roof, and finally the 2 legs that form the base. The whole process takes less than 5 seconds, but it is the culmination of a lifetime of practice and a moment of pure, unadulterated presence. There are no corrections in Shado. A moment's hesitation would show as a blot. A flicker of doubt would cause a tremor in the line. Your attempt tonight is not perfect. You see a slight wavering in the final stroke, but it is honest. It is a true record of your mind in that exact moment. On your next attempt, you move with more confidence and speed. As you draw the main stroke, you intentionally execute the hayaku, or flying white, technique. The rapid movement causes the brush hairs to separate slightly, leaving faint, streaky traces of uninked paper within the black line. To an untutored eye, it might look like the brush was running out of ink, a flaw. But to you, and any connoisseur of the art, it is a mark of vitality, of energy, and spirit captured in the ink. It is the sign of a line that is truly alive. You sit back and gaze at your work, and your focus shifts from what you have added to the page to what was already there. You contemplate the ma, the Japanese concept of negative space. The character is beautiful, not just for the 8 black strokes that form it, but for the white space those strokes define. The emptiness inside the roof radical, the space between the legs, the vast white expanse of the page that surrounds the character, giving it room to breathe. This is where the true beauty lies. The ink gives the emptiness form. The emptiness gives the ink meaning. And you realize with a sudden clarity that this is a perfect metaphor for your own life. You live a life of seclusion, of quiet, of what many might see as emptiness. Long hours spent behind screens with little action or external event. But this ma, this quiet space in your life, is not a void. It is the very thing that allows for poetry, for music, for the deep contemplation of a single blossom. It is the silence between the notes that creates the melody. Without the vast, quiet canvas of your days, the small, beautiful moments would have no meaning. Your life is not empty. It is a study in the art of emptiness, a careful crafting of the space where beauty can be born. The single character for emptiness lies drying on its paper, a bold statement in the quiet of your room. The sense of centeredness it brought you is a smooth, cool stone in the pond of your mind. Now, as true night falls and the palace grounds, grow still. It is time for the final aesthetic pursuit of the day, the most ethereal and refined of them all. It is time for Koru, the way of incense. You and your cousin, Lady Misako, along with an older, esteemed aunt, have arranged to listen, to incense together. This is not about simply perfuming a room. It is a discipline, a game, and a form of poetry that is inhaled rather than read. Your aunt, who is a master of the art, takes the lead. Her attendant brings the kabako, a stunning lacquered box inlaid with gold dust images of autumn leaves. Inside rests a complete set of tools, each one a miniature work of art. Your aunt performs the preparations with a practiced, elegant grace that is mesmerizing to watch. She takes the koro, a small celadon censer, which is already filled with a tightly packed bed of white ash. With a tool that looks like a flattened spoon, the hayoshi, she smooths the surface of the ash until it is a perfect, flawless cone. Then, using elegant bronze chopsticks, she buries a tiny, pre-lit piece of special charcoal in the center of the ash, creating a hidden, smokeless source of heat. The skill lies in getting it to just the right temperature. Too hot and the precious. Wood will scorch. Too cool and it will not release its soul. Finally, she places a tiny, paper-thin sheet of mica over the spot where the charcoal is buried. This will be the stage. The incense itself is not the sticks or cones an outsider might imagine. It is a collection of tiny, precious slivers of aromatic wood, primarily jinku or a loose wood. This wood, formed when a certain type of tree is wounded and produces a dark, fragrant resin over many decades, is phenomenally rare, often valued far higher than its weight in gold. You inhale the fragrance of a chip, smaller than a grain of your morning rice, knowing it could be worth more than the finest silk robe in your collection. It adds a certain pressure to appreciate it correctly. Tonight's game, your aunt announces, is a simple one based on the seasons. She has selected 4 different types of a loose wood. One represents spring, one summer, one autumn, and one winter. She will heat them one by one in a random order, and you must correctly identify the season each fragrance evokes. It is a competition, but the most subtle one imaginable. There is no scoreboard, just a group of women in a dimly lit room, silently sniffing from a bowl and trying to look profoundly moved. The ceremony begins. The first sliver of wood is placed on the mica plate. Your aunt lets it warm for a moment, then respectfully lifts the censer. She passes it to Lady Masako, who cups her hand over the rim, creating a chimney for the fragrance. She listens, inhaling 3 times slowly, her eyes closed in concentration before passing it to you. You do the same. The scent is light, sweet, with a slightly tangy green note. It speaks of moisture, of new growth, of damp earth after a rain. It feels optimistic. You make a mental note. Spring. The second fragrance is entirely different. It is stronger, more resinous, with a powerful, almost spicy heat to it. It is energetic and bold, like the full buzzing heat of a summer afternoon. There is no doubt. The third is the most complex yet. It has a sharp, slightly bitter initial note. But this gives way to a deeper, lingering scent that is profoundly lonely and melancholic. It smells like solitude, like the crisp, cool air of a long evening. It is the scent of falling leaves and fading light. Autumn. You recognize this one. It's a sliver from a famous log named Little Courtesan, known for its heartbreakingly lonely character. The final scent is deep, quiet, and profound. It is subtle and almost mineralic, a scent that seems to have no top notes, only a deep, resonant core. It is the smell of utter stillness, of cold stones under a winter moon dot. After listening to all 4, you each take up a brush and silently write your answers on a small slip of paper, folding it and handing it to your aunt. She reviews them with a small, knowing smile. You and your cousin have both identified them correctly. The prize is not a jewel or a bolt of silk, but a single unused sliver of the autumn wood, a gift of pure aesthetic pleasure. This entire exchange, this communication, happened almost without a word. You have shared an experience that is completely intangible. The fragrances, which filled the room with their invisible poetry, are already gone, leaving only a ghost in the memory. It is the ultimate expression of mano no aware, an appreciation of a beauty so fleeting it barely exists. Historians in the future will formalize this practice, creating elaborate schools and classifications like the Rikoku, the 6 countries of scent, giving them evocative names. But here, in the quiet of your Heian chamber, the art is more personal, more intuitive. It's a silent language of the soul. The air, now thick with the layered ghosts of these magnificent scents, feels peaceful, complete. You have communed with your companions on a level that bypasses the clumsiness of words, finding connection in the shared appreciation of something beautiful, invisible, and already gone. The night of silent poetry concludes, leaving you in a state of tranquil, rarefied peace. Your world, a carefully curated ecosystem of beauty, feels complete and harmonious. This feeling carries you through a night of dreamless sleep and into the next morning. Today, an unusual duty awaits. You are to accompany your mother on a rare visit to one of the great temples on the eastern hills of the capital, a pilgrimage to offer prayers for the health of a sick relative. This means you must leave the cocoon of your family's compound. It means a journey in the Gisha. The noblewoman's ox-cart. The vehicle itself is another version of your chamber, simply a mobile one. It is a beautiful enclosed carriage of lacquered wood with a gracefully curved roof and ornate brass fittings. Once inside, you are completely shielded from the outside world. The small windows are covered with hanging bamboo blinds, the sudair, and behind these hang curtains of thick silk, ensuring no curious commoner can catch a glimpse of the occupants. And, just as importantly, that you are not assailed by the unpleasant sights and smells of the city. You sit on plush cushions, the air inside thick with the scent of the incense that perfumes your robes. The journey begins. The first sensation is the slow, rhythmic lurching of the cart, pulled by a lumbering black ox. You hear the creak of the massive wooden wheels and the shouts of your family's retainers as they walk alongside, clearing a path and calling out for people to show respect. Through the slats of the blinds, the world is a series of disconnected, fleeting impressions. A flash of a brightly colored banner on a merchant's shop, the blurred shape of a passerby bowing low. The sounds are muffled, distant. You pass from the quiet, wide avenues of the aristocratic northern district into the chic, more crowded, chaotic streets of the city's central section. The sounds change, becoming louder, more varied. The smells shift from the clean scent of garden loam and blossoms to something more earthy and alive wood smoke, cooking fish, the press of unwashed bodies. You are moving through this world, but you are not in it. You are an observer in a soundproofed, perfumed bubble dot as the carriage moves towards the city's edge, closer to the agricultural lands that feed the capital. The road becomes rougher. The cart gives a particularly violent jolt as it turns a corner, and for a split second, a sudden gust of wind catches the edge of the silk curtain at your window, lifting it completely. For the first time, you have an unobstructed view. Your eyes, accustomed to the dim, filtered light of your existence, are flooded with the raw, unfiltered glare of the midday sun. And in that brief, shocking moment, your gaze locks with another. She is a woman about your own age, but she is a creature from a different universe. She is standing shin-deep in the murky, brown water of a rice paddy. Her face, which should be a pale, powdered white, is instead tanned a deep brown by the sun, streaked with sweat and mud. Her hair is not a floor-length cascade of black silk, but a practical, short-cropped bundle, covered with a piece of rough cloth. Her hands are not the pale, delicate instruments for holding a brush that you possess. They are red, chapped, and powerful, her knuckles swollen from work. She is wearing a single garment of coarse, earth-colored hemp, hitched up to her thighs, revealing legs caked in mud. Her back is bent in a position of permanent labor, as she methodically plants young rice seedlings into the sludge. The image hits you with the force of a physical blow. The sheer physicality of her existence is something you have never conceived of. You have read poems about rustic simplicity, but this is not simple. This is brutal. You can almost feel the pull of the thick mud on legs, the ache in her bent spine, the burn of the sun on her neck. While you spent your morning in the lengthy, passive ceremony of being dressed in 12 layers of immaculate silk, she was already here in the mud. While you spent your evening debating the ethereal qualities of invisible scents worth a fortune, she was likely mending this single garment or preparing a meager meal of rice and pickled vegetables dot the social chasm. Between you is not just wide. It is an unbridgeable cosmic gulf. You worry about a misplaced syllable in a poem. She worries about a drought that could kill her family. Your greatest physical trial is the sheer weight of your clothing. Her body is a tool, pushed to its limits. Every single day, a thought, dark and unsettling, flashes through your mind. Your entire, beautiful world, your silks, your incense, your poetry, the very rice you eat, is paid for by the sweat and aching muscles of this woman, and a million others just like her. The gust of wind dies. The silk curtain falls back into place, plunging you back into your dim, perfumed seclusion. The moment lasted no more than 3 seconds, but it has irrevocably cracked the lacquered shell of your reality. Your entire life has been a carefully constructed performance to shield you from the world you just saw. And in a single accidental glimpse, the raw truth of that world has imprinted itself on your mind. The carriage continues its slow, plodding journey towards the temple, but you no longer notice the lurching rhythm. You are still back in the paddy, haunted by the sunburned face and the mud-caked hands of the woman who lives under the same sky, but on an entirely different planet. Your name is not Akiko. You have never seen a 12-layered robe, and the scent of rare loosewood is as alien to you as the geography of the moon. Your name is Hana. Your world is not a sequence of hushed, perfumed chambers. It is the vast, open expanse of a rice paddy under a relentless sky. Your life is measured not in the 31 syllables of a waka, but in the unforgiving cycle of the seasons. You awaken not to the sound of the sliding screen, but to the cold, damp air of dawn seeping through the gaps in your hut's woven reed walls. The family rooster has been crowing for some time. There are no attendants. You rise from a thin straw pallet on the packed earth floor and shake the sleep from your limbs. Your body, even at 20 years of age, is a roadmap of aches, a dull, constant companion. Your breakfast is a small portion of watery millet gruel, scooped from a communal iron pot that hangs over the fire pit. The precious white rice, the very crop that defines your existence, is not for you. Most of it will go to the tax collector, an agent of the distant, faceless lord in the capital whose luxurious life it funds. The irony of starving while surrounded by food is so common it has ceased to be ironic. It is simply the way of things today. Like every day this month is for planting. You walk with the other women of your hamlet to the paddies. The water, fed by mountain streams, is shockingly cold as it swirls around your calves. The bottom is a thick, sucking sludge that tries to steal the worn straw sandals from your feet. The work is simple, brutal, and endless. You take a clump of bright green rice seedlings from a basket, and bending from the waist, you push them one by one into the mud, spacing them with an expertise born of 1,000 repetitions. Bend, push, slide, bend, push, slide. Your back screams in protest, but you ignore it. Everyone's back is screaming. To complain is to waste breath. The sun climbs. It beats down on the back of your neck, which is covered by a simple cotton cloth. Sweat drips from your brow and stings your eyes. Your world contracts to the few square feet of muddy water in front of you. A poet in the capital, perhaps Lady Akiko herself, might look at the dragonflies skimming the surface of the paddy and compose a verse about the jewels of summer. You see the dragonflies and know the air is thick with the biting insects they hunt, insects that will raise welts on your skin as you work. The jewels are a nuisance. The frogs that croak from the banks are not a charming rustic chorus. They are a future meal. If you are lucky enough to catch them, your concept of beauty is different. Beauty is not a subtle gradient of color on a silken sleeve. Beauty is a full, healthy stalk of rice, heavy with grain. Beauty is a sky that promises a gentle, soaking rain, but not a torrential, crop-flattening typhoon. Beauty is the sight of your child, who is currently being watched by one of the village elders. Sleeping with a full belly a sight, you pray to the local earth spirits for every single day. The weight you feel is not the 20 kilograms of a ceremonial robe. It is the weight of a single grain of rice, multiplied by 1,000,000. Each tiny seed you push into the mud carries the impossible weight of survival, the crushing weight of the coming tax, the desperate weight of your family's future. The agricultural year is a relentless wheel of labor. After the planting comes the endless weeding under the oppressive humidity of summer. Then the harvest, where you work from dawn until dusk with a small hand sickle, slicing through the stalks until your hands are blistered and your muscles feel like they've been torn from the bone. Then the threshing, the winnowing, the hauling of heavy rice bales. And then the arrival of the estate manager, a man who cannot believe your reports of a difficult season, who inspects your granary with a suspicious eye and takes his lords. Share, leaving you to meticulously calculate if what remains will last the winter dot as dusk finally bleeds across the sky. You and the other women straighten your backs, a collective groan of pain and relief. You trudge back to your hut, your legs caked in drying mud. You wash your face and feet in a bucket of cold water. You eat your meager dinner. You look at your hands, the nails permanently rimmed with dirt, the palms as tough as cured leather. These are not the hands of a poet. These are the hands that make poetry possible for others. Later, you step outside your hut and look up at the moon. It is the same moon that is rising over the tiled roofs of Heian-kyō. It is the same moon that Lady Akiko might be gazing at, perhaps contemplating a reply to a poem from a new suitor. For you, the moon is not an invitation to aesthetic contemplation. It is simply a light in the immense darkness, a clock that marks the end of another day of backbreaking labor, and a silent promise that when the sun rises, you will do it all again. And in the capital, behind a wall and a garden and a screen, of painted silk, a young woman wrapped in fabrics you could not even imagine tries to picture your life, and she cannot. The distance is too great. You are back in your chamber. The brief, jarring journey is over, and the familiar walls of your compound enclose you once more. The scent of your personal incense blend hangs in the air, a fragrance designed for tranquility. Yet your mind is anything but tranquil. It is as if the wind that lifted the curtain on your carriage window also blew a handful of coarse sand into the delicate, perfectly calibrated machinery of your world. The image of the woman in the rice paddy hana, a name you have invented. For her, as she surely has no name you would ever know, is burned behind your eyes. You look around your room at the objects that define your existence. You see the layered silks of your robes, folded neatly by an attendant, the colors still evoking their poetic theme of plum blossoms in the snow. But now, the immense, almost wasteful luxury of it feels obscene. You see the 20 kilograms of fabric, a weight of pure aesthetics, and you contrast it with the single mud-stained hemp garment the woman wore. Your clothing is designed to prevent movement. Hers is designed for brutal, efficient labor. The gulf between the two is the gulf between artifice and reality that an attendant brings your evening meal. On a small celadon dish sits a single, exquisitely shaped rice cake, its whiteness a symbol of purity. You look at it, and you see Hannah's hands pushing seedlings into the brown sludge. You think of the millet gruel she likely eats, while the fruit of her labor has been polished, steamed, pounded, and shaped into this functionless, beautiful object for your consumption. You have been taught the 100 courtly names for the moon in its various phases, the precise lineage of every major clan, and the subtle differences between 6 schools of poetic thought. But you were never taught the name of the woman who grows your food. Such knowledge was never considered important. You pick up the scroll with Lord Minamaga's latest poem. The calligraphy is, as you expected, superb. The words speak of the beauty of the blossoms being reflected in the beauty of the soul that appreciates them. It is clever, charming, and perfectly correct for your world. But the words feel thin, ghostly. They are words for a world behind screens. A world that has the luxury of contemplating its own reflection. What poem could possibly describe Hana's world? And who would write it? Her hands cannot hold a brush, and your hands have never felt the mud. This is the chasm. You and she live under the same sky. You see the same moon, feel the same sun, are subjects of the same distant, godlike emperor. But you are navigating by entirely different stars. Her stars are fixed points of survival. The spring rains, the summer sun, the autumn harvest, the winter scarcity. Your stars are a glittering, shifting constellation of reputation, taste, poetic illusion, and advantageous. Marriage, The path of her life was set the moment she was born, just as yours was. And the uncrossable, unbreachable law of the universe is that these two paths will never, ever meet. Your culture even has a word for this separation: kagari, pollution. Her world of sweat, mud, earth, and death is considered spiritually unclean, a place from which your world must be protected. The wall between you is not just social. It is sacred. For the first time, you feel the true nature of your gilded cage. You have always been aware of the bars, but you saw them as a framework for a beautiful life, a trellis upon which your delicate culture could grow. Now you see that the bars are not just to keep you in, but to keep the rest of the world out. And your safety, your beauty, your poetry, it is all predicated on the fact that Hana remains outside, trapped in a life of endless toil. It is a terrifyingly simple thought, one that threatens the very foundation of your worldview. It suggests the gulf between you is not a natural karmic reality, but a wall built by men, a wall of silk and rice and rules. Will this realization change anything? You know it will not. You cannot leave this life. You cannot tear down the wall. Tomorrow, you will rise, you will be dressed, and you will compose a reply to Lord Minamoto's poem, because that is your function. The machinery of your life is too large, too powerful to be stopped by a single troubling thought. But the blissful ignorance is gone. A new, deeper, and more sorrowful note has been added to your understanding of Mano no Aware. You once felt the pathos of things in the fading of a flower. Now, you feel it in the fading of a woman's life in a rice paddy. You feel it in the silent, invisible suffering that makes your own beautiful world possible. You will continue to live your life of quiet, aesthetic perfection, but you will never again be able to forget the price at which it is bought, or the face of the woman who pays it dot. And so, our story comes to a gentle close. The journey to Heian Japan is over. Let the images of Lady Akiko and Hana soften now, their vibrant worlds of silk and mud beginning to fade, like a watercolor painting left in a soft rain. Release the weight of their lives, the intricate rules of the court, and the heavy toil of the fields. They are just echoes now, characters in a sleepy tale, and their time is done. It is your time now. Your time for rest. Bring your awareness back from that distant century, back to the simple, solid reality of your own quiet space. Feel the gentle weight of your own blanket, a comforting pressure that asks for nothing but your stillness. Notice the soft support of the pillow beneath your head. The world of poetry and paradox, of beauty and struggle, can be set aside. It will be there tomorrow if you wish to find it again. But for now, there is only the peaceful rhythm of this present moment. Tune into the soft, steady hum of the fan, the one that has been with us since the beginning of our journey. Let it be a gentle, constant reminder that you are safe, that you are here, that all is well. It's a sound that clears the air, smoothing out the edges of your thoughts, leaving only a feeling of calm. Your breathing is easy now, flowing in and out without any effort at all. A slow, deep inhale, a long, soft exhale. Each breath carries you a little further away from the waking world, a little deeper into a state of profound and peaceful ease. Your eyelids feel heavy, so very heavy, as if tiny, smooth stones have been placed upon them. There is no need to fight this feeling. Let them close. Let the darkness behind your eyes be a soft, velvet curtain, signaling the end of the day's performance. Any lingering thoughts are like distant clouds in a vast, twilight sky. You don't need to grasp them or push them away. Simply watch them drift by, becoming smaller and smaller until they disappear over the horizon of your awareness. You are drifting now on a slow, quiet river, moving gently toward the great, silent ocean of sleep. You are safe. You are comfortable. and you are so very, very sleepy. The journey is over. It is time to rest. You've reached the end of another cozy, nappy tale. Sleep well, and remember, you're always welcome here. Sweet dreams, nappy friend.